We ready? All right. Hey guys, welcome back to Rob's Arcade. I am your host, Rob French, and it is Thursday, September 29th, 2022. And it's time for an all new midweek breakdown. So please don't go anywhere. I'll be right back.
Rob's Arcade, Rob's Arcade, where the games get played and the games get saved so they can be played on another day. Rob's Arcade.
All right, guys, welcome back. Like I said, I know it's Thursday and it's the midweek breakdown. And I know typically in the past, I've done my midweek breakdowns on Wednesday, aka New Comic Book Day. But yeah, my schedule, it's just been a little bit crazy. My last few weeks at work have been a little sporadic. And so I'm just trying to get in where I fit in, get these videos to you guys any way that I can, when I can. And, if you look at like a 5-day work week, Wednesday's the midweek. But if you look at it like 7 days, then like Thursday could almost be like a middle of the week thing. If you look at the Beatles said there's 8 days to a week, but never mind. Anyway, just trying to get this stuff to you guys when I can. And also I wanted to take some time and get some stuff together for kind of like I don't know if I want to say like a tribute episode for my father, but I've been wanting to do something for my father since he passed earlier this summer, and not necessarily like a video just about him or, all about my father, but definitely something dedicated to him and acknowledging his contribution to my love of like comic books, like horror movies and all that kind of stuff, which all kind of stems from one point of origin, which we'll get into later on in this video. But I thought this would be a good video to go ahead and tackle that. Now, before we jump into what comic books I picked up this week and any more nerd stuff and anything else in this video, I do want to take a second while I run to Richmond Comics out in Midlothian here in Richmond, Virginia, to pick up some supplies. I want to take a second to show you guys some of the books I picked up last week. And one of those issues is very key, and all of this kind of comes back to my father again, and the whole reason for comic book collecting and why I'm a 42-year-old child still into comic books and video games and all of that. So while I run to Richmond Comics, like I said, over at Midlothian here in Richmond, Virginia, you guys hang tight. Check out the books I picked up last week from Stories Comics out on West Broad Street, and I'll be back in just a moment, guys. Hang tight. Thanks. All right, guys, we're here at Richmond Comics, and I don't know. There's something exciting about going to the comic shop when it's not Wednesday, like New Comic Book Day. Because I've been shooting this thing all over this past week. So today is actually, if you can guess what day I went to Richmond Comics to pick up supplies, hit the comment section. That's a fun thing right there. Yeah, see if you can guess. Maybe you'll win something. I don't know. But I just love it. I love going to the comic shop. But it's not New Comic Book Wednesday. Oh, let's go. All right. Okay, well, hopefully that wasn't too long, and I hope that doesn't come out wrong either or weird, like when I was like, it's exciting going to a comic shop when it's not Comic Book Wednesday, because it's exciting going to a comic shop on Comic Book Wednesday too, because there's new comic books. But I think what I was getting at was that it's just exciting to go outside of my normal day, especially to Richmond Comics. I've been going to Richmond Comics for years, and my father's been taking me there for a long time. One of the first comic shops. Like I said, this was going to kind of be a video with some acknowledgement and dedications to my father, and this was one of the shops that he used to take me to, when I was like 12, 13 years old, before I could drive myself to comic shops. And once I found out even what a comic book shop was, he started taking me around Richmond to different ones. And Richmond Comics has always been a shop that I've always come back to. Even now 30 years later, I'm still coming back. It's changed locations over the years. It's always been in Midlothian. It's always been on Midlothian Turnpike. It's changed locations. I'm sure it's changed owners, management, all kinds of things. But it's always been here for me, and I'll always come back to them. But anyways, let's check out some stuff I picked up. Just some card protectors. Let's see, some Pokemon card protectors, like these little guys here. Got that little cool design. Didn't really grab a whole lot of comics, but I went in for supplies. Of course, I got to grab a couple of comics, right? Picked up this spooky little tale, Star Wars adventure. There, a little vampire story, very neat. And then this, which I thought was just like a weird science or like a weird mystery story, but it's actually an Archie Welcome to the New Paranormal Weirder Mysteries, one shot, chilling adventures. This looks really cool. I'm excited to read this, and this will probably get passed on to my Aunt Maria. She's a huge Archie fan, but I'm excited to read this. I thought this was just like one of those Tales from the Crypts reprint kind of things. And then I got some bags. I'm always running out of bags. I've always got boards, but never have enough bags. But I got some regular silver for the thick books, and then just some modern bags for my modern books. So yeah, some cool supplies there, a couple of cool comics, and like I said, I can get home and board up and bag some of the stuff that I read. Like I said, always run out of bags. I think it's because I, from time to time, will refresh the bags, because they get kind of dull, they get kind of cloudy, and a book just looks nicer in a fresh bag. And sometimes the boards are good, so I think I save the boards a lot of times, re-bag the book, and then I run out of bags and have too many boards. So, speaking of bored you long enough, hang tight. We'll be back with more Rob's Arcade, more stuff about my pops, more stories, as well as talking about Creep Show. I'm really excited about this new book and how this title started it all for me. So don't go anywhere, guys. I'll be back in just a moment, back at Rob's Arcade. Hang tight. See you in a few. Okay. Okay, I think I got it. All right. Hey guys, welcome back to Rob's Arcade. Just trying to figure out where we are in this episode. So we've been to Richmond Comics, picked up some supplies, talked a little bit about why I like that shop and how long I've been going there. And we've also looked at the books that I picked up last week from Stories Comics. Now, one title in particular has kind of sparked this episode to happen, now, currently, as it's happening. And I've been wanting to do, like I said in the beginning of this episode, something to highlight my father and to show his involvement and his kind of hand in my love for comic books and comic book collecting, even though he himself wasn't a huge comic book collector or reader. Perhaps maybe as a kid he was, but certainly not as an adult. And I know I've told this story several times, but it's probably the most important story in all of the stories of my comic book collecting life. And it's very appropriate that all of this, like I said, my father passed away earlier this summer, and I've been wanting to do something. One, I've been wanting to make sure I had the time to do this story, to do this part justice. But it also seems like it's all just kind of fitting. We're coming into the last days of September, coming into October, which was always my sister and I's favorite time because my father always did a great job putting together a huge show for Halloween and really, making sure he creeped us out every single year. And last week, a re-release of a title from Image Comics seemed to just kind of make this all, seemed like it was culminating and coming together, and this was the time to do it. And that issue that I'm referring to, without further ado, without any more suspense, was Creepshow, and this was the title. This was the book, not this actual book, but this was the title that got me into collecting comics. Now, when I got into collecting comics, as I've mentioned before, it was never about the heroes or even the villains. It was never about Superman. It was never about Batman. It was never about the Joker. It was always about monsters and creeps and Tales from the Crypt and all of the weird mysteries and science stuff and Vault of Horror. That's what drew me into comics, the monsters, the villains, not the superhero stuff. And that's partly because of horror movies. Before I was reading comics and horror comics, I was watching horror movies. My dad, as I've stated before, introduced my sister and I into horror movies at a very, very early age, and why I'm so excited. In a few days, October starts, and we can just start pumping out those marathons of horror movie after horror movie after horror movie for the next 31 days. And one of my favorite movies growing up was Creepshow. It was just something about the horror, the zombies, the tales, the fact that you got a bunch of stories all piled into one movie. And then it had that very cool segue of like graphics and almost animation and comic book art segueing into the next live action tale. And there was just something about that movie that I just, even at the age of like 9, 10 years old, 8 years old, I just loved Creepshow, one of my favorite movies. So when my father brought this actual book home, my sister and I would fight over who got to hold it, who got to keep it in their room. And it was almost like a weird, creepy read along. You could read this comic and it was like page for page, just like the movie. And we would spend many an afternoon just popping in the Creepshow movie and going through this book. The movie was great. It was written by Stephen King, the master of horror, and directed by George A. Romero, the king of all zombie movies. So it was just a great, it was like, Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo, were to get together and put together a piece of art. Like this is what that would be. And so, like I said, just growing up, we would just fight, like who got to keep it in the room, who got to hold it when we watched the movie. And my father took that as a sign. Well, they like horror comics, so he started buying us Tales from the Crypt and the Vault of Horror reprints. And when he brought those home, we were kind of like, no, we're not really into horror comics. We just like Creepshow. Like this is just the book that we like. But after reading a few issues of Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror, what was it? Strange Tales of Science. I fell in love with the books. The next thing you know, I was like, I do like horror comics. I do like these books. And that started a huge collection. I had stacks and stacks of horror comics. I remember just telling one of the owners over at Stories the other day that I remember kind of getting beat up. I mean, like, comics are cool now, but they weren't very cool back in the day. And I remember getting like beat up for, inviting my friends over who were also into comic books, and they would like come to look at my collection, and they'd be like, "Oh, cool," and then like, "What is this?" And they're like, "Where's your Spider-Man?" I'm like, "I don't have any Spider-Man." And I remember one of my friends like actually just punching me in the arm because like my comic book collection was so stupid. But anyway, those were the books that got me into comics now. And then, of course, once I started discovering the comic book spin rack for myself, characters like Wolverine, Punisher, quickly caught my eye. But yeah, Creepshow was the book that started it all. And all because, again, my father, kind of forced my sister and I to watch horror movies, as weird and demented as that sounds. But he also showed us how fake it was. It wasn't real. It was just guys in costumes. This is what Freddy Krueger looks like without makeup. This is the guy who does the makeup. So it became less of like a scary movie and more of like, well, how the heck did they do that? And so that love of horror movies turned into a love of horror comics, which just turned into a love of comics in general. We got some She-Hulk, which we're going to talk a little bit about that in just a short moment. But yeah, so Image Comics celebrating 30 years of comics, re-released the Creepshow title. I'm super excited. It's been relaunched with a couple of sequels as well as a TV show, as far as the cinematic universe goes. I haven't watched the TV show. Been meaning to. I guess this Halloween would be a great time to jump in and check it out. See if I can't find a format that maybe I can do a 30-day trial, test it out, and watch all the episodes. I actually made friends, or I guess acquaintances, with a gentleman who got to work on the show and actually meet Stephen King, and was very involved in like the set dressing, which I can only imagine would be like, oh my gosh, like a childhood dream come true. But getting to meet him and talk to him a little bit was kind of interesting over this past last summer. And so, maybe like I said, that we're going into Halloween might be a good chance to kind of check it out, and it'd be fun to kind of look for his name in different episodes and see exactly which episodes, he had a part of, hit him up on Facebook. Like, hey, I saw your name. Anyway, but yeah, so I'm really looking forward to this title. I'm hoping this isn't like a one-shot just deal. I'm hoping this goes on for, a nice little lengthy run would be great. And just excited because during the month of October, I like to read horror comics. I like to read creepy comics and be creeped out. So this is very, very appropriate, very, 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 very well, perfectly timed. And yeah, so that's I guess kind of why I wanted to do all this now. And I'm glad I waited. Again, just been super busy and just, wanted to make sure I had enough time to, tell that story and give it justice and not really rush through it. Because again, I can't really stress enough, like if my father, hadn't been so, if he had gone the other way and said, no, I don't want you watching horror movies and I don't want you looking at this stuff, maybe I never would have found comics. Maybe I never would have discovered the Punisher and Wolverine and some of these other characters, and I wouldn't still be collecting 30 some years later. So, Dad, thank you so much. I hope you're still looking over me whenever I head to the comic shop. He was, like I said, I didn't even know what a comic shop was. He was, when I first started getting into these superheroes, he was, taking my lists and heading to these comic shops, setting up boxes for me at these comic shops. So he could just be like, here, I need this, I need this, I need this. And he would go by like once a month, drop off the money, bring me my books, and I would just have this, this huge stack of stuff to go through like every month. And it was super exciting, super awesome. And I cannot thank him, enough. I still remember those moments going to Richmond Comics. I still remember those moments going to Nostalgia Plus. He took me to a really cool shop downtown where, by where he worked. And all the guys were super blown away at the fact that I was like this 12-year-old kid. They thought I was like 17 or 18 based off of the stuff I was reading. But he was just always there for me, supporting, my hobby, and, taking me sometimes even like, twice a month, every other Saturday, to different shops and just seeing what was out and buying comic cards. So, you want the Spawn comic card set? Let's just buy a whole box. Like, why are you going to buy a couple packs at a time? Let's just get the box. And it was always there to fuel that little bit of fire that I had for comics. So, again, I just really wanted to take a little bit of time, acknowledge that. Thank you, Dad. And what was also, before I kind of wrap this piece up, excuse me, it was really also very interesting is that when I kind of took a little bit of hiatus from comics, and then found myself, once I injured my foot a few years ago, getting right back into it without any real hesitation. But just before all of that, like, he gave me a stack of comics, like just as I was heading back to the comic shop. He just happened to come by and visit me and just see how I was doing. And it was just like, here, I brought some comics. And it was just really odd. It was almost like he knew, like, let me, the fire is burning again. And, here you go. Here's a little bit of fodder to get that blaze going. So thanks, Pops. Thanks, guys, for listening to that. Hope that didn't bore you too much. I don't know, maybe gave you a little bit more of an insight on, like, why does this guy who's 42 years old still get excited about going to the comic shop every Wednesday, or just any random day to pick up supplies? What gets him? Why does that get him so charged? And there you go. I mean, it started 30 years ago with my love for movies and horror movies and all of that. It's all connected. It's all one big giant knot. But yeah, anyway, speaking of picking up comics, let's go ahead and take a moment now and take a look at some of the books I picked up this week. We're going to talk some about She-Hulk, because today is Thursday. A new episode of She-Hulk just dropped. And also, Andor. Yes, there's a bunch of stuff going on. My weekdays are so packed. There's Disney Plus is pumping it all out right now. So anyway, don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back. Hang tight. Check out these new books. And yeah, see you in a bit. right, well, there we have the books I picked up this week from my other favorite comic shop here in Richmond, Stories Comics. Wanted to take a moment to talk about one of the books specifically that I picked up yesterday that I've been really looking forward to. So, as I mentioned earlier, my father was very instrumental in not only my comic book collecting, but also my love for movies. He would show me these crazy horror films, as well as how they were kind of made and who was behind them and different things. And one of his favorites and one of my favorites growing up was the Evil Dead 2 and the Army of Darkness series. I almost feel as if really like the Evil Dead was the reason why he wanted to show me horror movies to begin with, because of Bruce Campbell's performance with the severed hand and the whole playing, his hand against himself and crawling across the floor. That I think was what he. What the heck's going on? I think that is what he wanted to show me and for me to experience. But it was kind of like, oh man, I can't just show him this scene with this guy Bruce Campbell doing this hand thing and then cutting his hand off and doing the chainsaw bit without any context. So I gotta show him the whole movie, right? But again, just seeing how that was done, it was one of those movies where, with the beautiful direction by Sam Raimi, that like how was it done? How did they do that? How does all of these effects and all this stuff? How do they make it look so real? And so, growing up, Bruce Campbell was like a household name, just like any other actor growing up. You walk into somebody's house and mention Tom Cruise, they're going to know exactly who you were talking about. And in our house, Bruce Campbell was synonymous with Val Kilmer and Tom Cruise and all these other actors in the 90s. So when I heard that DC Horror was releasing a 6-issue run featuring one of their older, more unheard of characters, Sergeant Rock, who seems to have made a kind of a resurgence lately, versus the Army of the Dead, written by none other than New York bestseller Bruce Campbell. Now, when I saw this advertised in the back of a few books last month, I was beside myself. Again, he's one of them. He almost looks like Bruce Campbell there on the front if you look really closely. He's like, which is funny, he's played Elvis, but in my opinion, he's kind of like the king of rock and roll of like horror icons. Like you have, you can't really say like Michael Myers or Jason is like that Elvis, like that stage performer. But there's something about Ash, the character that Bruce Campbell plays in the Evil Dead series and the Army of Darkness, that this guy's kind of got like a charisma and something about him, and the ladies love him and the guys want to be him, and there's really nobody else like that in the horror genre. So this guy really is like a king of rock and roll of horror. So to have him stepping aboard with DC Horror to bring this wacky tale of Sergeant Rock battling these undead zombies just in time for Halloween is just something that I cannot express how excited I am. I picked up 2 issues. Now, this is something I've kind of gotten out of recently is picking up double issues, but I mean, I just had to, one, because both covers are just super, super amazing. I love this one. It's kind of like a old piece of propaganda, war propaganda. You might see like a Nazi kind of poster, all the colors, the way it's highlighted, even the text and the font up top. This is something you'd probably see during wartime. And then we'll just take a sneak peek here kind of inside. I don't want to give away too much, but this is a good panel here to kind of check everything out. I love the art style. This is very much like something you would find in Tales from the Crypt growing up here from Rizzo, the artist there. Let's see if we find a more cool and gruesome panel, maybe a little wickedness here, maybe somewhere in the back. Oh yeah, here we go. There's a little horror for you. And this is like the kind of art that I grew up reading before I would go to bed. It's like, and again, you can kind of see that same kind of style there. All the monsters and stuff there in the background. Just love that. It's like an endless sea of the dead here. And what's the full artist name here? I want to give him credit here. Ednardo Rizzo. Man, that's awesome. I love this art. Very cool. Very, very simple, very basic, you know, not a whole lot of like huge detail in the backgrounds and stuff. Very cool. Very, very fun stuff. So yeah, this would be a book. If my pops were still here today, I'd be like, Dad, check this out. Check this out. You would love this. Even up until the very end, when I was going to the comic book shop on Wednesday, like Wednesdays would pop around. He'd be like, what day is that? Like Wednesday, and he'd be like, oh, you're going to the comic shop. You're picking up some new books, and he'd want to see. He'd want to see what I got. He'd want to, he'd want to check them all out and stuff. So this would be one where he would be like, Dad, this is written by Bruce Campbell, and this would be a book he would be really excited about. I think he would be, let's see here. Here we go. These two books right here, I think are two books my pop would be really, really excited about, And we haven't really done like a pick of the week or pick of the month or anything like that in a while. Maybe something we should get back into, bring Art 4 back into the midweek breakdown. That might be kind of fun. But if we had to have picks of the week or what have you, this episode, these are the picks for this episode. Sergeant Rock versus the Army of the Undead and Creepshow #1. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to share those with you guys. It's Thursday, so we got some cool new stuff on Disney Plus. I'm gonna kick it back over to Rob real quick, and he's gonna share his thoughts on Andor, She-Hulk, as well as talk a little bit about the comic that we've been picking up, Sensational She-Hulk. So hang tight. We'll be right back, guys. Thanks. Am I done here? Can I go? All right, guys. Well, let's see. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, like I said, She-Hulk, Andor, Disney Plus. It's just they're pumping it out right now, and we got a ton of trailers with new stuff coming out. There's like the Secret Invasion and the new season of Mandalorian. But yeah, I mean, they're giving me another reason to wake up early on Wednesdays and Thursday mornings. So yesterday we had the new episode of Andor. They had a great 3-episode premiere. A lot of people said the first couple episodes were slow. I thought they were great builders. The 3rd episode definitely is where it starts to hit its mark. But I mean, it drops all at one point. So if you ask me, it's all like one big long episode. Just sit down, watch the first 3 pieces, and it's kind of like you got your own little mini, Cassian movie to kind of set the board for what looks like a pretty lengthy run. I didn't know this was going to be such a big show. Now it's already set for 2 seasons. That's a drop from the 5 seasons. Wow, 5 seasons it was set for. We're getting 12 episodes per season, so 24 episodes altogether. So already it's jumping out the box with a huge run, and the episodes are pretty lengthy. We're getting about 45-minute long episodes, and then yesterday's episode dropped at 50 minutes, which I was really excited about, but it's again about 50 minutes of setup. So if you're looking for a lot of action, a lot of explosions and stuff going on, go back to Mandalorian. That's going to take a little bit, I think, in this show before we see a lot of the actual fighting going on. But we're also looking at the beginning of the rebellion. So I think once the rebellion and all that does kick off, it's just going to be fight after fight after fight after fight, blow up, this going off, and spy after everywhere. So, let it build up, people. Also, we got She-Hulk, which had another episode drop today. I'm not going to say anything just quite yet, but spoiler alert, I knew Josh was an asshole. Fuck Josh. But I've been really liking that show. A few people that I've talked to are kind of like, they're on the fence with it. But I love the humor. I love the fact that they can kind of play inside of the comic book universe without taking things so serious. It's always like high stakes and life and death with Spider-Man and Captain America, Iron Man. But things are a little bit more loose and free with characters like Thor and She-Hulk. And I kind of enjoy that playing. You got the release of the Iron Man shoes and, what it's like to have magicians doing sideshows at bars and things like that. And it's just, it plays into a sort of what if kind of aspect of the Marvel universe. And again, I still just love the cast. And each episode just seems to, I don't know, hit every mark where it's supposed to hit. And it's very much in line with the comic book that I do remember growing up and reading as a teenager. I mean, here we are, she's reading Hulk, and it's kind of like breaking that fourth wall within the Marvel universe there. And I've been picking up some back issues at Stories Comics, some really cool stuff. I'm going to grab them all. They got a few more left. I'm going to, at some point, pick up every issue that they have. Let me see. I think I got some more back here. Oh, yeah. I grabbed this one yesterday, as we saw. And then this one here, too. Yeah. So I'm going to wind up getting them all. But yeah, it's like I said, as goofy and kind of silly as the show is, it's kind of how I remember the comic book. And I remember my sister and I really liking the comic book growing up. I don't know if it was the sibling rivalry that kind of like the cousins had, Bruce Banner and Jennifer Walters, or if it was just the fact that it was a cool female superhero that my sister could identify with, and the fact that I was just a young adolescent and thought She-Hulk was hot. Still do. That's not a past tense statement. That's a present tense statement. But yeah, I really enjoy the show, and I hope that the show is sort of short-lived, so that way we can actually maybe see She-Hulk pop up in the Marvel universe. Although if they decide to keep going with her series, whether it's 2 seasons like Andor or 5 like Andor, I'll be there every single Thursday waiting for that next episode. Just love their ability to play on what would it be like for superheroes to exist in the real world. And it would get a little silly, I think, from time to time. Anyway, if you guys have been keeping up with Andor and She-Hulk, let me know what you think of the show. Hit the comment section down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What was your favorite episode, your favorite part? What are your thoughts on the twerking? I'd love to hear from you. Of course, if I, have the time, I will hit you back in the comment section as well. Thanks. All right, I guess that's gonna do it for this episode of Rob's Arcade. Thank you so much for hanging out and hanging in there. I know this has been kind of a weird episode, a lot going on, but it's been a few months in the making, just trying to get all of this out there. I had a lot of fun. Hope you guys had fun watching. Let me know what your favorite part was. Like I said, I'd love to hear from you guys, so please hit the comment section, give me a thumbs up, or if you thought the episode really sucked, give me a thumbs down if you want. But please, like I said, give me a little comment down below. I'd love to hear from you guys. Please share the video, subscribe so you don't miss future videos. Again, huge shout out to my dad. Thank you so much for, like I said, sparking that interest in movies and comics and video games that just continues to burn till this day, and hopefully will burn for another 30 years. Oh no, gosh. Oh yeah, no, I guess I could still be reading comics at 74. So yeah, okay. That works for me. All right, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out. Remember, this isn't goodbye. Simply to be continued. And until next time, don't spend that quarter anywhere else. Take care, guys. Be good to yourself and each other. Later. Oh yeah, and one more thing before I go. Happy National Coffee Day.